Hello, and welcome to the Chief Architect Premier Quick Start class. My name is Dee Dee, and I'll be your instructor. If you have a computer with speakers, select Use Mic and Speakers on your GoToMeeting control panel. If you have difficulty hearing, click on Audio Setup and select the correct speaker option. If you still have problems hearing, you can use your phone. Click on Use Telephone, and the phone number and the access code will show up for you to use. This is an interactive webinar. You can ask questions. Although all attendees are muted, you can type in a question in the bottom box and click on Send. Your question and our reply will display in the box above. In this webinar, we'll create a 3D model of a building using Chief Architect Premier. We'll start with an overview of the program, including the interface, the menus, and toolbars. Then we'll cover file management, saving your plan, and creating plan templates. We'll also cover CAD basics because it applies to most everything in Chief. Then we'll be creating the building shell. We'll add doors and windows. We'll add floor levels for a second floor and a basement. We'll also add stairs. Then we'll be using the roof tools and the dormers. We'll work on the interiors for kitchens and baths using cabinets. Then we'll apply some electrical items. We'll add some framing. We'll work on the terrain and sloping the lot. Then we'll talk about layouts and creating construction documents. Then we'll talk a little bit about the presentation views, like ray tracing. We'll get started by double-clicking on the Chief Architect X8 icon on my desktop to open Chief Architect. When you first open Chief Architect, the Getting Started dialog will appear. From this dialog, you can open a brand new plan or open a new layout. You can also create a new plan from a specific template, or you can open a plan that you've already created and saved, or a layout that you've already created and saved. Under Recent Files, you'll see the last few files that you've worked on. You also have some resources here, your overview video, as well as additional training videos, and the access to the download catalogs. We'll talk more about the library browser and the download catalogs a little bit later. You also have the Getting Started button. If I click on this, it'll open up the Chief Architect website, where it will show me many Getting Started resources for tutorials, videos, documentation, and help, as well as additional webinars and training. For now, I'll go ahead and open a brand new plan. When you first open Chief Architect, you'll see that Chief has given you the drop-down menus for all of the tools in Chief Architect, as well as toolbars underneath the drop-down menus. These toolbars were simply created for faster access to many of the basic building tools. For instance, if I go to the Build drop-down menu, you'll see the Wall Tools parent tool. The icon looks exactly the same as it does in the toolbar. So if you didn't have any toolbars here, you could run the entire program with drop-down menus. Chief has simply given us toolbars for quicker access. The first line of tools at the top is called the All Views toolbar. This toolbar will show up regardless of the view you have active in your window. The first tools are your file management tools. You can open a new plan, open an existing plan you've already created and saved, save a plan, print, or send to layout. You also have your undo and redo buttons. You also have your project setup tools. Then you have your design resources. We'll look more into the tools in these toolbars as we move through our design process. Then you have your plan navigation tools, your camera tools, your cross-section elevation tools, and other tools related to your 3D views. The last 5 tools in this line are toolbar configurations. Each of these holds a different set of tools in this line below. The default toolbar configuration holds all of your basic building tools. You also have your kitchen and bath toolbar configuration. This holds the tools that are specific for designing kitchens and baths. You also have a terrain toolbar configuration, as well as mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, and your space planning configuration. When you have a toolbar configuration active, you'll see the check mark here on the tool. Over on the right side of your screen, the first tools at the top are zoom tools. We'll be using these a lot as we design. The tools down here at the bottom are toggle tools for preference settings. This is your library browser. The library browser holds all of the design options that Chief provides for you. You have the Chief Architect Core catalogs, which are the catalogs that are initially installed with the program. But you also have the option to download bonus catalogs and manufacturer catalogs from the website. To find these, here at the bottom of the library browser, if you click on Get Additional Content Online, that'll take you to the website where you can search for and download additional content. You can also create your own custom materials and objects. Those will be saved in the user catalog. Before we get started, I want to make some changes in the preference settings. But before I do, for the purposes of demonstration, I'm going to use my CAD tools to draw out a couple of polylines. Then we'll go to the Preference Settings tool. You can get to this again by going to Edit and down to the bottom for Preference Settings. That Preference Settings icon is here in your toolbar. There's a few changes I want to make here that make it easier for me to work. But preferences are really personal preferences. You'll set up the preferences for how you want to work with Chief Architect. These are saved globally. It does not matter what plan you have open. When we make these changes, they will remain until we change them again. The first thing I want to do is uncheck the box for contextual menus. But first, let me show you what a contextual menu is. I'll go ahead and click OK, and then I'll click on one of my polylines. When I click on my polyline, you can see down here at the bottom that I have another set of tools. These tools here at the bottom are the edit tools that are specific to the object I have selected. If I right-click on that object, I get the same set of tools in the contextual menu. In this contextual menu, it gives me the name of each one of the edit tools that I can use. However, if I use the Edit toolbar at the bottom and just hover over any one of these edit tools, the name of the tool will pop up. And the right-click option can be used for a lot of different things in Chief. So in my preference settings, I'm going to uncheck contextual menus. Then I'm going to change the way the toolbar works. Right now it's on drop-down. All of the tools that you see here with a small arrow next to it are parent tools. If I click on the drop-down for my Door Tools parent tool, the drop-down of the child tools shows up right underneath it. I'm going to go ahead and draw a wall, and then I'll place a door by selecting the Door Tool parent tool and selecting a doorway, a framed opening. When I click on the wall and place the door, you'll notice now that the parent tool icon has changed and looks very much like the Window Tool parent tool. So in my preference settings, I want to make a change and use the Child Tool palette instead. I'll go ahead and click OK, and you can see now that my parent tools look a little bit different. There's still a small triangle indicating the parent tool. However, when I click on one of these tools, the drop-down doesn't appear underneath the tool. The child tools will now show up here on the left side in my tool palette. I'll go ahead and select the Doorway tool again and place another doorway. But you'll notice now that the parent tool icon doesn't change, so it's not as easy to get lost in your toolbar. We'll go back to those preference settings and make a couple of more changes. Under the Appearance category at the top, I'll click on Colors. This is where you can change the handle fill color and the selection fill color. If I select something in my screen, you'll notice that the object highlights in gray, and I get edit handles on each of the sides and the corners, as well as the Move edit handle in the middle. So back in my preference settings, under Colors, I want to change the color of the handle fill color. Here, I'm going to use a very bright green. For the selection fill color, I want to use a pink color. I use pink because pink is not used for very many things in Chief Architect. However, I want to lighten this up, so I'll use the bar at the right side here to lighten and darken. I'll move this up to get a soft pink and click OK. If I click OK now and then select an object, You'll notice now that my edit handles are bright green and much more obvious, and the object is pink, making it more clear what object I have selected. We'll go back to the Preference settings and then go down to the General category. Here you can change the number of files that Chief will save for use when using the Undo tool. With this setting, I can undo 50 building steps. You can also decide to display the startup options or not by unchecking this box. Here you can change how the dialog's size and positions will be saved. Under File Management, under Auto Save, you can change the frequency with which Chief saves a backup file. You can also change the number of recent files that you see in the initial Recent Files list. You can also change the number of files that will automatically save before the Auto Archive warning dialog will pop up. Under Time Tracker, Chief will record the amount of time you're working on any individual plan. If you walk away from your computer for 5 minutes, it will display the idle timeout dialog. I'm going to uncheck this box so that that display does not pop up. Under Architectural, I want to uncheck the box for Select Room Before Wall in 3D. If I'm in a 3D camera view and I click on a wall with this checked, it'll actually select the room that wall is in. With this unchecked, it'll select the wall first rather than the room. Under the Edit category, you can change the appearance of your crosshairs. For instance, right now my crosshairs are blue. Blue is used for a lot of things in Chief, including your dimensions. So here I want to change my crosshair color to orange, which is not used often. I'll darken it up a little bit and click OK. You can also determine if you want your crosshairs to go 100% across the screen or a smaller percentage, or if you don't want crosshairs at all, make this a 0. You can also add an aperture size. I'll go ahead and click OK now, and you can see that my crosshairs cross all the way across my screen, right and left, and from the top to the bottom. And I have no aperture setting. If I go back to Preferences and go back to Edit, I can add an aperture size. I'll go ahead and type in 30 and click OK. Now you can see that where the vertical and horizontal crosshairs come together, there is a space that's 30 pixels wide in my screen. I'll go ahead and select this wall and then click on the Delete Objects tool in the toolbar at the bottom. As I mentioned before, some of these tools over on the right side of my screen are toggle tools for preference settings. Some of them, however, are toggle tools for default settings. Defaults are saved in the individual plan, not globally in the program. For instance, the blue grid that you see on my screen. This grid shows us 12-inch by 12-inch boxes. It may be handy to have on when you're designing a building, so that you get a general idea of the size of the building that you're creating. However, for clarity's sake, in this webinar, I'm going to turn it off. I can turn it off easily by unchecking this box here on the right-hand side. Then I want to select and delete all 3 of the boxes that I drew here on my screen. You can select one object and then hold down your Shift key and select another one. Or, while you're in select mode indicated by the white arrow on my screen, you can click and drag a box or a marquee, and anything that this box or marquee touches will be selected. If I click and drag a box large enough to touch all 3 of the boxes, I can select them all 3 at the same time. Here I'm going to use again my Delete Objects tool. You can also use the hotkey as indicated here in the brackets of the Delete key on your keyboard. Now let's talk a little bit about CAD objects. CAD, C-A-D, stands for Computer Aided Drafting. Here in your toolbar you have CAD tools, the Point tool, the Line tools, the Arc tools, Circle tools, and the Box tools, as well as the Spline. I'll start here by drawing a line. I'll click on the Line tool parent tool, and again over here on my left-hand side you'll see all of the child tools that belong to the Line tool parent tool. When I select that parent tool, the first tool in the child tools is automatically activated. To draw a line, I'm simply going to left-click here in my screen and drag to draw the line. And you'll notice that with my crosshairs I no longer see that white arrow. If the white arrow is not showing with your crosshairs, that indicates that you have a tool active. To get back to selection mode, you can click on the arrow key over here, or the hotkey for that is to simply hit your space bar. Hitting your space bar is like opening your hands. If you have a tool in your hands, it will drop the tool. If you have selected an object and hit your space bar, it will drop the object. When I click on this line, you'll notice two things. The line itself now has edit handles. It has the end edit handles that will allow you to extend the line or shorten it. You also have the move edit handle, the edit handle in the middle, and note the two-way arrow. The two-way arrow indicates which direction I can move this entire line. I can move it up and down, but if I move my cursor over to the right or over to the left, the line itself will not move. You also have the same line type edit handle, the diamond beyond the end of the line. If I click and drag this edit handle straight down, it'll simply draw another line and connect it to the first line right at their endpoints. You also have the rotate edit handle, which is a triangle beyond the object. If I select this edit handle, I can rotate this object by clicking and dragging in a circle. Once I have two lines, you'll notice that I have edit handles on both of these lines. Because when you have two lines that are connected at their endpoints, Chief will glue them together as a polyline. Polyline simply means many lines. You'll notice now that the move edit handle is away from one individual line. And I can use this edit handle to move both lines as one object, either up or down or left or right on my screen. These are the two directions allowed by angle snaps. If I try to move it in a 45-degree angle, it won't allow it, unless, as I click and drag, I'll hold down my Control key. The Control key will allow it to move freely. On a Mac computer, this will be your Command key. I'll go ahead and use the same line type edit handle and drag in this direction, and then drag it again straight up. Once I have three or more lines that are connected each at their endpoints, the object becomes what's called a closed polyline. A closed polyline can be converted into a 3D object. Lines, or any of these CAD objects, are simply 2D objects. There is no depth to them. Now you'll notice that when I select it, because it's a closed polyline, it'll highlight in pink. And again, I have all the same edit handles. On each edge, I have an edge edit handle that will move it in the direction of the arrow. The corners will reshape the object, because the corner will move, but leave the other corners exactly where they were. The other thing you'll notice is when I select something and move it, or try to draw something, I'll get what's called snap indicators. You can see the red hourglass as I hover near this line. That means that it will snap on the object. If I hover near the corner, I get a square snap indicator. This means that if I draw a line from here, it is connected exactly on the endpoint of that line. If I draw a line from the middle and snap to the triangle, I'm snapping to the exact midpoint of that line. I'll go ahead and click and drag a marquee to select these two lines and delete. If I want to edit one of these lines without editing all three, for instance, if I want to delete this line, I can select that line, and then in my Edit toolbar at the bottom, one of my tools is the Disconnect Selected Edge. That will disconnect it from the closed polyline. Now I can delete it without affecting any of the other three lines. If I get a red X snap indicator, that means I'm at an intersecting point. And you'll notice the blue dotted line. That means that I'm aligned with the adjacent line. The other thing you'll notice when you select an object is you'll get temporary dimensions. The temporary dimension will show up depending on which of the edges I select. And I can use these temporary dimensions to change the size of the object, or move this line. So with this line selected, it's active, and you can tell it's active because the square on this edge is larger than the squares on the other three edges. With that edge active, if I select this dimension by clicking right on the number, I can type in a number that I want. When I hit enter, it'll move that line and change the size of the polyline. Now I'll activate this edge, use this dimension, and do the same thing. Simply type in the distance that I want that line to be from the adjacent line. You can draw a square or rectangular polyline by using the box tools. You can use the rectangle polyline, a regular polygon, a box, a cross box, or a blocking box. With the rectangular polyline active, I'll simply click where I want to place the first corner and then drag out to where I want to place the opposite corner of the rectangle. The tool stays active, so I can just click and drag and draw another one. These edit handles and many of the edit tools that I'll show you for the CAD tools are applicable when you're drawing anything that is polyline based, and most objects in Chief are polyline based. Let's take a look at some of the edit tools. One of the tools I have in my toolbar is my Break Line tool. If I click on this tool and then click along this edge, I'm creating a break point, or what will be a corner. If I click and drag this out, it'll form a corner. If I select one of the edges on either side of this break point and drag it out, it'll actually create two corners. You can now move any of the corners to reshape the object. Another tool that you have in your Edit toolbar at the bottom of your screen is your Change Line to Arc tool. You'll select the edge that you want to change and make it active, again indicated by the larger square edit handle, and then click on the Change Line to Arc tool. That will change that straight line to an arc. Now you have a couple of different edit handles. If I select the square edit handle, it'll move the entire arc without changing its radius or its endpoint's distance. If I select the circle at the apex of the arc and drag it out, it'll leave the radius of the arc exactly the same, but it'll move the endpoints. Once you've made a change to anything, you can use your Undo tool to undo one building or drawing step. If I click on it again, it'll undo the last step. According to our settings and our preferences, I can undo as many as 50 steps. On that arc, I have one other edit handle. The small triangle on the arc will change the radius of the arc without moving the endpoints. The invisible line from this end of the arc to this end is called the chord. Again, I also have the Rotate edit handle. This will rotate the entire object. Other tools that you'll find in your Edit toolbar are the Polyline Union, Polyline Intersection, and the Polyline Subtraction tools. With this box selected, if I use the Polyline Union tool and then select an intersecting polyline, Chief will merge the two closed polylines. You'll have the option to leave the two original polylines and the new merged polyline, or delete the original. If I delete the original, I now have the exterior perimeter of both of these lines merged together. Another tool you have is to select an object and use the Polyline Intersection tool. I'll click on this tool and then click on this box and then delete the original. That will leave only the space that is intersecting between these two polylines. Another tool that I have is the Polyline Subtraction tool. If I click on one polyline and then select the Polyline Subtraction tool and then select the intersecting polyline and then delete the original intersecting polyline, it will leave only the first selected polyline with the intersected area removed. I'll go ahead and delete these polylines and create one more. I'll create one up here in the corner, and we'll look at a couple of other edit tools. Down here in your Edit toolbar, The second tool is the Open Object tool. The Open Object tool will open the specification dialog specific to the object you have selected. In the Polyline Specification dialog, you can change many of the properties of this line, including the line style, the color, and the layer that this line is drawn on, as well as add a fill or change the label. We'll look further into these specification dialogs as we go. The third tool in my toolbar at the bottom is the Copy-Paste tool. If I click on the Copy-Paste tool and then simply click in a different area, it'll paste that exact object where I've clicked. I'll go ahead and delete this using the Delete key on my keyboard. The next tool is Copy-Paste in Place. This tool, when you click on it, doesn't look like it's actually doing anything, so you need to be very careful with this tool. In reality, I actually now have two objects that were taking up the exact same space. So if I click on that tool and then click and click again, I'm creating many more than one object in the exact same space. Another thing you'll notice when you select an object is if you look with your eyes down at the bottom left-hand corner of my screen, you can see the word Standard Polyline. That is your feedback bar or your status bar that tells you what it is you have a hold of. And if you follow that line over to the right, you'll see where it says Object Layer CAD, Default. That's the layer it's placed on. If I were to click and drag a marquee to select more than one object, it will tell me how many objects I have selected. Another tool in your Edit toolbar is your Transform Replicate tool. You can use this tool to copy a certain number of copies, move at a specific distance in a specific direction, rotate, resize, and reflect about. We'll use this as we continue with our design. You also have the Multiple Copy tool. When you click on this tool, you'll get a set of sub-tools. The first one that I want to click on is my Multiple Copy Interval. Here I want to set the interval, whether I'm offsetting between copies when dragging, or evenly distributing a specific number of objects. This CAD polyline is considered a general object. Here we've set general objects to copy in the primary offset direction at 24 inches on center. I'll go ahead and click OK, and you'll notice now that when I hover over the Move Edit handle, the Multiple Copy tool icon appears. As I click and drag sideways, it's copying this exact object every 24 inches, as indicated by the interval that I've set. You have many more edit tools in your toolbar here at the bottom, and we'll use these as we continue. For now, I'll go ahead and hit Delete.